Next up, we have Altaria. This Pokemon is known for its unique combination of cloud-like wings and its singing ability. It's also possibly the kindest looking dragon type, appearing peaceful and welcoming, unlike its mean-mugging counterparts. Players of Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald will remember Winona's strongest Pokemon being her Altaria, and that it was exceedingly tough to KO, while later on Drake's Altaria was not easy to bring down either. But today we'll be examining Altaria's impact on the competitive scene. So how good was Altaria actually? And in this video, we'll be going over these competitive formats. Unfortunately, Altaria was completely unable to make any sort of impact in Advanced OU whatsoever. It was utterly outclassed by the mighty Salamence, who boasted far superior attack, special attack, and speed, as well as Rock Slide, which was crucial coverage for Zapdos and Aerodactyl. Salamence wasn't just better offensively though. Despite Altaria's superior defense and special defense, Salamence outclassed it defensively too. Intimidate made it one of the best Heracross checks in the game, and it even packed Wish to heal both itself and its teammates. Altaria was just too weak to accomplish anything in OU, and thus it dropped to UU. There, it was unique in its Dragon Dance niche, and solid at it to boot. It wasn't the strongest thing around, but it could muscle through a fair amount of teams, especially since its combination of typing and bulk was better suited to the tier's lower power level, and thus gave it plenty of opportunity to switch in. Another solid trait it had was Natural Cure. This meant it was not permanently ruined by Toxic. Plus, thanks to Hidden Power Flying and Earthquake hitting everything in the tier hard besides Lunatone and Solrock, who Altaria couldn't beat anyway, it could even run Rest in the last slot to both abuse Natural Cure and to outstall defensive Pokemon that would otherwise do the same to it. Dragon Dance Altaria wasn't flashy, but it was very good. Of course, Altaria could be an effective defensive Pokemon itself, thanks to Pokemon XD giving it the immensely useful Heal Bell. It also possessed excellent anti-setup tools in Haze and Perish Song, while dishing out Toxic and keeping most Toxic immune Pokemon away with Flamethrower. And of course, staying healthy with Rest augmented by Natural Cure. It was a bit on the niche side since it didn't counter too much, thanks to much of the metagame preying on its nasty ice weakness, but it was absolutely terrific against the popular Sunny Day Vileplume and Ninetales teams, and Heal Bell was a phenomenal tool to have for stall teams. Overall, Altaria was a fine Pokemon in Advanced UU, capable of playing a unique style of both offense and defense and doing both well. Generation 4's new physical special split, upgrade of Outrage, and addition of Draco Meteor meant there were a ton of powerful dragon moves being thrown around, especially with the new boost from Life Orb and Choice Specs. And again, unfortunately for Altaria, it was outclassed by every other dragon out there. But at least this time, all those other dragons were OU, so Altaria dropped to UU, and it was entirely unique in dishing out dragon-type offense. It was helped out by the fact that most steel types, which were the only type of Pokemon that resisted dragon, were also in OU to help deal with all the dragons up there. Altaria's dragon typing was also useful in giving it the edge against the grass and fire portion of the UU emblematic fire water grass cores. Its water resistance was limited as a consistently useful defensive tool in and of itself, given the water type's propensity for running ice moves. But its ability to draw that ice move was still useful in pivoting around a dangerous threat, especially against rain. As a speed boosting sweeper, Altaria's resistance to common priority moves in Aqua Jet and Vacuum Wave made it difficult to check for frailer offensive teams that couldn't withstand its hits, and its bulk meant it didn't instantly crumple to Arcanine's extreme speed either. Finally, the lack of Skarmory and Bronzong in the tier meant that there was no steel immune or even resistant to Earthquake, so Altaria had perfect coverage in just 2 moves. This allowed it to run Dragon Claw for a stab option that didn't lock it into the move for the following turn, Fire Blast to hit Steelix harder, or Roost for longevity that could safely heal it out of range for Absol or Toxicroak's Sucker Punch. Now, Altaria had a lot of great attributes, but it wasn't exactly dominant. Even if it was paired with Dugtrio to remove Registeel, its low attack stat held it back from instantly running teams over. Even an Adamant Life Orb and Dragon Dance boosted Outrage wouldn't come close to KOing the ultra-dominant defensive Milotic. Same went for any variant of Donphan and Rhyperior, and Scarf Rotom outsped it and Revenge killed it with Hidden Power Ice. It could also be difficult for Altaria to set up safely, given how it didn't severely threaten much without a boost, and its stealth Stealth Rock weakness making it threatened by things it otherwise wouldn't be too troubled by, such as Venusaur's Sludge Bomb, especially when it had to deal with Life Orb recoil to do damage itself, and thus it was not always able to take out more than one Pokemon. Still, this could be key in breaking open a hole in the opposing team for its teammates to take advantage of, and thus Altaria was a fine Pokemon on heavily physically offensive teams. Plus, if its team zeroed in on the Pokemon that checked it, which isn't a tough task given how popular these Pokemon were, Altaria was more than capable of smashing the opposing team to pieces, with its bulk and typing affording it many places to set up, especially if its team packed a Rapid Spinner to remove Stealth Rock. Overall, Altaria was the UU Dragon. Despite its flaws, it was a Pokemon to be feared. Generation 5 brought about massive power creep, and suddenly Flygon was UU's dragon, while Druddigon could hang in either UU or the new RU. As a result, Altaria was knocked down several pegs on the tiering rung, dropping past RU and winding up in NU. Unfortunately, it was no longer unique even down there, or even particularly good. Its Dragon Dance set was significantly outclassed by Fracture and Dragonair. Neither were weak to Stealth Rock, and the former had brutal power, while the latter had the ever-useful extreme speed. Altaria's one true role was the role of the Choice Specs Draco Meteor Bomber, whose dizzying base power allowed it to cleave through most of NU, in spite of Altaria's below-average special attack stat, since the tier was sorely lacking in bulky steel types. Altaria had its place, but its niche was small, though it was better than nothing. Fairy types meant the future was looking grim for Altaria in XY. But then Oraz came and the tables turned, as Altaria gained a Mega Evolution that made it part fairy itself. Revenge was sweet, as it was now immune to the dragons that had previously outclassed it, as it walled Latios rather than being obliterated by it, shedding itself of its flying type, and as such its Stealth Rock weakness was also huge, and Altaria became a significant OU metagame threat. Its offensive stats weren't impressive at first glance, but its new ability Pixelate helped out in that regard, giving its Fairy Stab the equivalent of a free Life Orb. It had two very fierce movesets. The first was a straight-ahead Dragon Dance Sweeper that had tons of setup opportunity and was immensely difficult for many standard teams to stop, between Return and Earthquake together slicing through most of the metagame, and Roost to stay healthy. Some players even used Facade to turn a potential burn from Rotom Wash or Keldeo to their advantage. It was especially scary with Magnezone alongside it, removing Ferrothorn, Skarmory, and Mega Scizor. The second set required less support. It was a no-frills mixed wall breaker that could fry the aforementioned steals itself with a powerful Fire Blast, while cleaving open the rest of the metagame with Hyper Voice and still packing Roost and Earthquake to make sure it'd stick around and could clock Heatran, respectively. It was even a decent check to Mega Charizard Y, resisting all three of its attacking moves and not being vulnerable to Pursuit. And speaking of Pursuit, Altaria wasn't threatened by Scarf Tyranitar like Mega Gardevoir was, allowing it to break the common balance teams it was meant to, without worrying about getting trapped before it could dish out real damage. It helped a lot that the Dragon Dance and Mix sets didn't have overlapping counters. For example, Specially Defensive Gliscor and Standard Clefable could shrug off the Mix sets well, but they got utterly run over by the Dragon Dance variant and vice versa for Defensive Landorus Therian. Altaria was so dangerous that for a while it was considered to be potentially ban-worthy. However, the hype eventually died down and Altaria went from being at the top of the metagame to mostly forgotten. It was completely countered by Amoonguss, which rose in prominence to deal with the combination of Keldeo and Pursuit. Getting stuffed by Talonflame wasn't fun either. Altaria also struggled to get past the nearly omnipresent Thunderwave Clefable, which ruined it even if it took a hit. It never really became bad, but the support it required to function, that being Magnezone for Dragon Dance sets, since the mixed sets had little way of getting around Clefable and Gliscor, was not just restrictive, but also took a lot of time to get going, by which time the opponent was likely already exerting pressure that made it too difficult for Altaria to make a comeback. Plus, even if Magnezone did get the trap off, it wasn't guaranteed to work, since it was still completely stuffed by Amoonguss, wasn't all that strong, meaning it could even struggle against something like Slowbro, and worst of all, it struggled to get by something as common as Scarf Landorus Therian. Now, this wouldn't be so bad if Altaria didn't take up the Mega slot, but it does, and players gravitated to Megas that were both more dangerous and immediate in their danger, such as Metagross and Diancie. Mega Metagross's usage especially hurt Altaria, since it was itself a fantastic check to Altaria, shrugging off its hits with tremendous bulk, not being too Magnezone prone, and even packing a powerful Bullet Punch if it was too weak to take a hit from a Dragon Dance Altaria. Overall, Mega Altaria is a decent Pokemon in Oraz OU, and definitely had its time of being elite, but once that time passed, it became quite difficult to make work consistently, and its usage dropped quite a bit. It was even UU at one point, but it was far too overwhelming for the tier, and was quickly banned. It still got quite a lot of potential, it just takes a lot of work to get the most out of it in OU. Regular Altaria, on the other hand, found itself lower than ever in the newly created PU, but at least it was quite good there. It was notably the best counter to the dangerous Monferno, and also it didn't bother trying to sweep with Dragon Dance much. Instead, it focused purely on defense to get the most out of its typing and bulk. It used the switch-ins and got to spread Toxic, nailing common stealth rockers like Soul Rock, which helped its teammates defog efforts, and would mean Altaria didn't have to deal with its stealth rock weakness. With Flamethrower, it kept out toxic immunity such as Poniard and Matang. Overall, Altaria was a solid PU Pokemon that handled a good chunk of the metagame, and was an important part of whichever team it was on's defensive backbone. Then in VGC 2016, the restricted Pokemon were running amok. And not much is known about Altaria because of how little it appeared, but from what we've been told, it does seem to have a niche, albeit an extremely small one. Altaria's pre-Mega form has the Cloud 9 ability, which will cancel out even Primal Groudon's Desolate Lands while it's on the field. This means that Altaria's Water-type partner Pokemon, like Primal Kyogre, can actually threaten Groudon with a Water move now, since Desolate Lands is no longer active. Then, aside from that, once Altaria Mega evolves, it has either a Pixelate boosted return and or Hyper Voice, depending on what spread you use, as well as support moves like Tailwind and even Haze. A Pixelate boosted return can even 2-hit KO Xerneas. And if Altaria was partnered with Mega Gengar, then it would let Gengar Mega evolve while it remained in base form, and use Parasong while Mega Gengar trapped the opponent. However, even though Altaria doesn't need to take a restricted slot in order to cancel out weather like Mega Ray does, it does need to take up a Mega slot, and the preference of other support mons or Mega Pokemon amongst players really shows in its few notable placements. I apologize if I butcher any of your names, but at the Korean Autumn League, Chan Woong Moon got 4th place with it, and at the Chile Nationals, Estefan Valdebenito placed 5th with it. So as you can see, Altaria wasn't close to a high usage mon, but it at least had its moments. Mega Altaria was hit hard by Generation 7's Pixelate nerf, which reduced the boost its normal to fairy moves received from 30% to 20%. This, in addition to the OU metagame becoming incredibly hostile to it, with all the Toxapex and Magearna running around, meant it dropped to UU instantly. But this time it wasn't anywhere near ban-worthy. It was a fine Pokemon, but it had a ton of issues. Scizor, Mega Aggron, Amoonguss, Cobalion, Sylveon, and Primarina were all strong, common Pokemon, and they checked it well, not being threatened much by its low damage output. However, Altaria's value was not solely in its offensive capability. It was an amazing defensive stop to some of the metagame's most dangerous threats, including Infernape, Rotom Heat, Hydreigon, and Crawdon. Plus, its checks weren't unreasonably difficult to lure in and deal with. They were good Pokemon, but a good UU team had plans to deal with them, and as such, a conscientious player would be able to take advantage of, say, Amoonguss's presence by baiting it in with Altaria, then using the opportunity for a free nuclear hit with Specs Moltres. Another example would be slowly chipping Mega Aggron on the Switch with both Altaria and a partner like Nihilego, since Mega Aggron was not famed for its longevity. It definitely required heads-up play to deal with the presence of Altaria's checks, but the defensive utility it brought to a team was worth it. Plus, the sweeping potential was always there, since it wasn't stopped by common Scarfers, Krookodile, and Hydreigon. And if not being able to efficiently do offense with Altaria was not to one's taste, they could just viably run a defensive set with full bulk investment, and it became an even better stop to the Pokemon it had already checked, while also providing crucial team support in Heal Bell or Defog, allowing its teammates to function more efficiently. However, Mega Altaria was a fine Gen 7 UU Pokemon that fit right at home in the metagame with its excellent defensive utility and potential offensive threat. But sadly, regular Altaria wasn't lucky enough to find a niche in PU this time around. It found a Pokemon that threatened it around every corner. Aurorus, Alolan Sandslash, and Mesprit threatened to KO it. With the latter two setting up Stealth Rock, Altaria wouldn't be able to immediately defog, as did Clefairy and Aggron. Substitute Calm Mind Oricorio Sensu set up all over it. Skuntank messed with it easily, and in general, Altaria was a sitting duck unable to do much, then feel like dead weight, as it failed to damage or check anything, with any semblance of consistency. As a result, it was slapped with the awful dishonor of untiered, and as such, it isn't recommended for use in any Gen 7 tier. Then in VGC 2019, once again, Altaria not being seen often is an understatement, but a couple of crafty trainers made use of its Cloud 9 ability pre-Mega in order to combat weather once again. They also basically used similar sets as 2016, and this time it also had the option of having Tapu Fini with Scald as its partner in order to threaten Groudon with a water move once more. In the Korean Spring League, Jae-hyun Lee reached 7th with it, and then at the DC Open, Daniel Navarro placed 12th with it. And that's it. So how good was Altaria actually? Well, it's always lived in the shadow of stronger, faster dragons and has existed in the lower tiers where those were less of a hot commodity. Generation 6 saw it finally get some OU glory as it was gifted the boost it so desperately needed in the form of a mega evolution. And though it didn't last, there was a point where it was seriously being considered uber-worthy by some. Its return to UU the generation after was seen as a triumph given what it had gone through prior and what its regular form sadly continued to do. Overall, Altaria is a prime example of having new life breathed into it with a mega evolution. Now, before we end the video, I have a quick announcement. I'm gonna be playing Pokemon Sword and Shield on the night it comes out. I'll be streaming the night of its release, so Thursday night or Friday morning, depending on how you look at it. And if you wanna watch that live, go to twitch.tv/Kellen_FSG. So yeah, should be fun, and we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching, everyone. And as always, if you liked the video and you wanna see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And in the comments, I wanna know, what do you think about competitive Altaria? How would you tweak it? Would you change its mega form at all? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. And to vote for next week's Pokemon, be sure to go to the community tab of this channel and comment on the latest post there with the Pokemon that you want to see. That should go up around the same time as this video's release, or a little bit after. Also, shoutouts to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.